Welcome everyone to Color Commentary. We are your pauper commentators, Michael Pejek and Adrian Gonzalez. How's it going, Adrian?
Great. How are you, Mike?
Good. You happy to be in 2019 finally? We've put 2018 behind us and we're only headed up.
2018 was several years long, and honestly, Mike, I don't see a reason why 2019 won't be also.
Fair. Here's hoping this year is
People
better.
People think the new year suddenly means things are going to be different. Well, I think it's going to be more of the same.
Well, yeah, we put the old man year out to pasture, and we have the new fresh baby year. That's how this works.
All right. All right.
But yeah, we're back. We're recording. And we will be coming to you weekly again. Sorry about the week off, but we had to go places and see family and be people outside of this. But we've got some cool stuff cooked up for you today. And first off, we're going to take care of some upkeep stuff. So first, as with every week, we are brought to you in part by Original Magic Art. Original Magic Art is a cool online web store with an assortment of tokens, dice bags, playmats, art prints from throughout the history of Magic and the history of the world at large. They've got their long-running classic art tokens, which I absolutely adore, and I've actually been meaning to order some for a cube and keep forgetting. But regardless, if you want something that's going to make your game nights a little bit more special, a little bit more, dare I say it, high class, a little bit fancier, you can go there. We are an affiliate, so you can either go to the URL originalmagicart.store/commentary or use the affiliate code commentary in all caps when you check out. And either one of those will get you 10% off your order, and it lets them know that we sent you over there. As a result, we get a little bit of a kickback, and you get your discount. So it's a win-win. You're helping support the show. You're getting a little bit of a discount off a already very nice product. So nothing really to lose. So again, originalmagicart.store/commentary, or use the affiliate code commentary in all caps during checkout. Both of those spelled as they are in the name of this podcast. Adrian, what do you have for us?
We got a Patreon for an episode. You can hear the full show, including our pre and post shows, and you get access to our patron exclusive Discord channel.
Yeah, it's a fun time. We actually have been talking a lot about the subject of this episode over the break. And well, we don't want to hold you up too much longer, but the last thing, we were brought to you in part by Hipsters of the Coast. Hipsters of the Coast is a content hub for Magic the Gathering content. They've got all sorts of cool stuff there for a variety of formats, pauper included. And in fact, Adrian, you just wrote an article for them over the break, didn't you?
I did. It's about standard pauper, which is what we'll be talking about in just a moment.
It sure is. But yeah, go check them out. And if you like the content, give them a follow on some social media platforms. Maybe even tell them that you found them through us. Always helps us out. All right.
So
on to the show.
They only give me like 1,000 words to write those articles, or that's like the ballpark I should be in. So I was really looking forward to doing an episode with you on the Arena Standard Pauper event, so that we can talk about it in a little bit more depth. Yeah,
because we both spent a lot of time, and to be clear, even by the date this episode goes up, this event will still be ongoing. So what's the impetus behind us playing Arena Pauper at this point? Besides the fact that we're pauper guys,
the sweet promos. I mean,
and the fact that it was free.
Yeah. Also, I don't mean to brag, but I am kind of an expert now. I must have like 10 of those Fire Mine.
I mean, you have 4
cards. Well, I have 4, and then I have a bunch of Vault. I 5-0'd that event a lot. It's fun.
Yeah, it is a huge blast. So, how about you tell people about like sort of the structure of the format as it stands right now? And this is a special event. The next time they bring it back, should they choose to do so, it'll probably be different. But what do we have right now?
It's interesting you say that, because yes, there'll be a new set coming out between now and then. But I think this is pretty much the exact same format that they did last time. But basically, yeah, you get to submit a 60-card pauper deck. You play matches best of 1. You play hopefully a series of 5 games. You play till you get 2 losses or 5 wins, whichever comes first, and then you get rewarded appropriately. So even if you lose, you do get the Land of War Elf promo, which is really sweet, much better than the rare that you get for completing it, in my opinion.
What is that rare?
Fire Mines Research.
What does it do?
I don't know.
I was gonna say I have a physical copy of that card sitting in some box somewhere, and I have no idea what that thing does.
I think it's an enchantment that can duplicate spells. Maybe I really don't know.
It's an is it thing, but yeah, the Llanowar elves. I even saw people asking in assorted places, can I just scoop before I get to the 5 wins and still get my elves? And it's like, yeah, you can.
You have to actually because the way that they've programmed the event, if you get all 5 win, you don't get a card per win. You only get one for the entire event, and if you win out, you actually just get the rare. So you don't get the rare and 4 elves, which is actually kind of frustrating.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing, but there is that level of like, oh, I guess I have to scoop this one. But
it's a little counterintuitive. Well, you can get 1 win and then you can resign.
That is true. You can just go through, get a win, resign, get your elf, move on with your life. But yeah, this is a cool thing. They ran it over the holidays, and it was completely free, and we both jammed a bunch of it, and I think we're kind of converts on this format. Seems really cool in this moment in time.
A lot of the problems with standard Pauper have been fixed by the fact that it's now on a much better platform, in my opinion. Like, the decks are still very low powered compared to what else you might see, but they're powerful enough, and the client just makes playing such a breeze that you'll play. I found myself playing, 5 or 6 games and not even really realizing it. And I think it's more of a strength of Arena as a platform than anything else.
I have to agree. I think I've found myself like logging into Arena and just kind of jamming Magic regardless of format without even really thinking about it. And I am really happy with the client.
And one thing that I will admit that these freemium games do get right. So Moto is more like it's more like a simulator, like you're just going to play Magic, but the reward structure in Arena makes it so that by playing Pauper, you feel like your time has been spent doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Even if ultimately it's all just, cheap free promos and, the 1 pack a day or whatever gold you might earn through the event. Like, the fact that you can just earn gold through the event is great. And I think that is a freemium model that really rewards players playing a lot, which is of course like why they're so addictive and stuff. But for Magic, it makes me feel fine because I was playing Magic like that anyway.
So I have a question, and we've talked about this in private off the show. Do you encountered this a little bit, and I did to a certain extent. When this event was announced, I cleared out all of the common wild cards I had.
Yeah,
admittedly, like, I have not put money into Arena past that like intro bundle thing that they'll let you have for $5. So
I got that too.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot to begin with, but I cleared out my wild cards.
So that's the big downside of Arena. The wild card system is absolutely trash. You're going to have to buy packs to get what you want. And even if you don't open what you want, they give you the wild cards. Whereas on Moto, like, you could have built this deck for less than $5. You could have built the entire standard Pauper format for less than $5 just because of how easy it is to get cards on Moto and how cheap the cards actually are. We're talking fractions of a penny for some of them.
And even if they had selling, and I'm using this term without fully knowing how their system works, but I'm familiar with the concept of Hearthstone's dusting system, where you can kind of trade stuff in to craft other cards.
If I'm being completely honest with you, it feels like the wild card system was invented just so they didn't have to rip off the dusting system, because most of the freemium card games out there use some sort of dust type system where you can break the cards down into a generic resource.
Yeah, and that would be really nice, or even just some way that a user could purchase wildcards on their own. Admittedly, I don't know if that factors into like their distribution model for cards at all, but
it also incentivizes you to not spend any money on packs. So
I mean, that's true.
That's really why I don't think it'll happen. The wildcard system is good because it'll sell a lot of packs.
But yeah, so I managed to assemble a deck and depleted all of my commons.
Same.
But
so sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I jotted out some sort of like strengths of the format, and I think talking about those before we get into sort of more specifics of the format would be a good idea. Both of us, admittedly, at the top of the show, let's just get this out of the way, we have both jammed a ton of blue-black control. And we're on slightly different lists, but that does kind of color our perspective on the format a little bit, and I do want to acknowledge that up front, because this first one is very relevant to that. 2 toughness or lower is an issue for your
Right.
creatures.
And as we go over the decks, I can address that a little bit. But yeah, Mephitic Vapors is the sweeper in this format. That's -1/-1 Surveil 2. And then there's also Dead Weight and Moment of Craving, also -2/-2. And then to make matters even worse for the X1s, there's Fungal Infection, which not only gets rid of your X1, but also creates a 1/1 for your opponent.
And for reference, that's also just black that you covered there. I've seen Shock. Shock's currently in Standard, and that's a 1 mana deal 2 to any target. There's Direct Current, the Shock with Jumpstart, so you get 2 shocks out of it. There's also, oh god, I'm not braining good at this exact moment, but
White's removal is Luminous Bonds, and there's some other bad sorceries there, but I think Luminous Bonds is probably the best white removal. And then in green, you just have like fight effects, and then blue has my personal favorite, Blink of an Eye, because I think the rest of them are very weak compared to Blink of an Eye, like Disperse.
Yeah, and green also does currently have Rabid Bite, which is a really solid. That's actual as close to removal as green gets in its color pie at common. That's the one-sided fight card where your creature just deals damage to the other thing without getting dealt damage back, which helps out a decent amount for the green decks. All right, what other sort of overall observations do you have on the format?
Hexproof is very strong. You specifically referenced a 4/5 here in this list, which is Coldwater Snapper, but there is also a green card called Jungleborn Pioneer that creates a 1/1, and if you check out my video series, I do lose to that card. And really the only way to effectively counter, especially Coldwater Snapper, is really counter spells. Essence Scatter is in the format, Cancel is in the format, Devious Cover Up, because once they hit the board, unless it's specifically the 1/1, getting rid of it's going to be very, very difficult.
There's also the Flyer, although that one is a little bit easier to deal with out of the control decks. The 3/2 Hexproofer.
Yeah, and how I ended up dealing with a life-linked Coldwater Snapper is I kept blocking and Blink of an Eyeing my Salvador Secrets, and getting back Blink of an Eye with it until eventually I was able to draw another creature. Then I double blocked and bounced the enchantment, so I was able to kill the Coldwater Snapper that way. But it took a lot of time.
All right, so yeah, Hexproof, very good. The lack of edicts is a real issue for dealing with these things, and I'm kind of surprised we don't have like a Celestial Flare sort of effect in the format. Oh, that actually reminded me of something. There's no sideboarding, at least in this event.
Right, they're best of one.
They're best of one. So yeah. The removal spell I didn't think of before was a Cosmotronic Wave. The 4 mana, deal 1 to everything your opponent controls, and they can't block this turn.
Which actually goes great into our next point here, which is to have a plan for Rat Colony, because people love to cheese, and it's easy. It's super easy to build. The deck is not very good. I saw a lot of build up to the event being like, oh, well, Rat Colony is going to be out of control. And it's just not. There's just so many ways to deal with Rat Colonies. Even if you 1-for-1 their Rat Colonies the entire game, they really can't keep up. And especially the black removal is very good against them.
Also, we don't have, black doesn't have a really great draw spell right now. And that's a bit of an issue.
It is Dark Bargain.
Yeah, that's a 4 mana spell, right? Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it's an instant.
Oh, it is an instant. I'm just saying it's 4 mana to.
I think it's a 3 mana. I think it's a 3 mana instant. Is what I'm saying.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh no, it is 4. You're right.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay. But yeah, black card draw is not great. Before rotation of Amonkhet, there was, what was it, Painful Lesson, the 3 mana Sign in Blood.
Yeah.
And that was that probably would have been better. But yeah, that deck runs out of gas really easily, and the fact that Rat Colony doesn't ever buff the toughness of other rat colonies makes it really easy to just kind of go, all right, we're just going to stop this. I do have to.
There's a lot of. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say I do have to share the anecdote of the Rat Colony player who I played against, who put up with 4 repeated castings of Mephitic Vapors, and finally conceded after the 5th time I had wiped their board. So
did they give you a nice or an oops?
Nope, didn't get anything. Just got the exploding avatar animation, and I was like, I can respect you for sticking with it this long, but I would have scooped much earlier.
That deck is not very good, honestly. I understand the appeal. Once you have 4 rat colonies, you can just build the deck, but it really can only it's really only good against maybe the other aggro decks but even then it's not really, because as we get into the white deck, what we're about to cover, I think you'll see that it actually lines up very favorably against the rat deck.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to counter this. It is not the boogeyman that I think people sometimes conceptualize it as.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to talk about is gold cards. And one of the things I noticed was a lot of lists that did better against me were decks that had a decent density of gold cards in them.
That's interesting, because if you look at my list, Mike, there's only 1 gold card. If you look at the other list, there are none. And then if you look at the 2 in the middle, there are also no gold cards.
So I don't know if you ran into the blue-red like tempo control deck.
Oh, the wizard deck?
No, not the wizard deck. This is just like it's similar to the blue-black control decks, but it splashes red instead for cheap removal.
Oh, I know what this is. This is Goblin Electromancer, the Beacon Bolt.
No Beacon Bolt. That Hypothesizal's in it.
Okay,
but,
that's it. Yeah, I do know what deck you're talking about.
Like, it feels like a lot of the gold cards are reasonably powerful, and I think that as a result, I didn't see like a bunch of Gruul decks or a bunch of Orzhov decks or anything like that. And I think I have a section outlined later where we're going to talk about what the possible future of this format on Arena is. But I think that the fact that those colors don't have access to these cards that are a lot better, like the difference between Hypothesizal and like even just like completely out of context, like divination, there's like a marked difference in the level of what those 2 cards can do. And so I think that paying attention to what gold cards are in standard is a pretty reasonable way for you to get an idea of what power level you can kind of get out of a specific color combination. That was just something I'd noticed. Every time someone cast a gold card, it felt really good against me.
My one of gold card is
Artful Takedown.
Yeah, which is really good. So
yeah, but yeah, I think pay attention to what gold cards are in standard, or even just stuff with off-color activation. I'd count here, even though I don't think there are any of those currently in standard. But those will, as soon as it's more difficult to play the card to its maximum possible power, the better it's going to be mana for mana. All right.
And then your last note here is fixing is better than you think, but not 3-color good. And I agree. 2-color archetypes are very easily supported thanks to the Guild Gates and the other tap land cards. In fact, my deck doesn't even play. It only plays 4 Guild Gates. It doesn't even play the rest, the other 4 it could play.
Yeah, I think that we don't currently have a Terramorphic, or do no, we must.
There's Evolving Wilds.
When was the last time that was printed?
It was one of the Ixalan sets.
Oh, that's right. So we do have Evolving Wilds, huh? I've never.
It's not very common. It's not really needed.
Yeah, I mean, mana fixing in standard at the common level right now is pretty darn good. Like up to 8 duels in any color pair is frankly probably more than you could ask for. But all right, let's how about you walk through some of these lists and kind of point out things that you've observed in the format, because I've ground a bunch, you've definitely ground a lot more than me in this format.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to start with White Weenie. I think that this is one of the most ubiquitous decks in the format. I think 9 times out of 10. In fact, why don't I pull up my stats? I started using this tool called MTG Arena Pro, and it tracks like everything that you do, and it's really, really sweet, because I'm going to be able to go to my deck here and see how many times I've played against white aggro since I started keeping track of my stats. So yeah, I have played against white aggro 9 times. The next highest one is mono red at 6, which I'm not going to cover today because I think the mono red deck is actually not very good. But the white deck, 20 lands, of course, all plains. And then in our 1-drops, we typically see 4 Healer's Hawk, which is a 1/1 with lifelink, which is good versus it's a fine turn one play, but really one of the strongest play I think this deck has on turn one is Hunted Witness, which is a Doom Traveler type effect, and I think that is really why white is the best aggro deck. It actually reminds me a lot of the Hearthstone Zulok deck, where all the minions, or excuse me, creatures, basically replace themselves. So it's really good against Mephitic Vapors, and can make favorable trades in combat. So Hunted Witness is the first of that. When it dies, you get a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. There's also Rustwing Falcon, which I don't think is very good at all. But
that's the 1/2 flyer for one, right?
Right. Especially in the deck that we're sort of going over today. Typically, that can be mitigated a little bit because some of these decks play Knight's Pledge, which gives +2/+2. The deck we're looking at doesn't, but in that case, I think Rustwing is okay. But here, I don't see it. So, after that, we have 4 copies of this deck's just a bunch of 4-ofs, which I like. Just 4 of Martyr of Dusk. It's a 2/1. When it dies, you get a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. So again, we're seeing that recurrence of a little bit of stickiness. 4 copies of Silverbeak Griffin, which is a 2/2 for white with flying. So you can keep the beats. Exalted Sky Marcher, which is a 1 white and a white for a 2/3 with flying. So the deck really just wants to curve. We have our first piece of removal in 4 copies of Luminous Bonds. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. I do think it is some of the best white removal. It doesn't get rid of the creature outright, but you can stop a blocker, which I think is really key because the other white removal really only destroys like attacking or blocking creatures or tapped creatures, and you have to get that done at some point.
Mm-hmm.
There's also for Paladin of the Bloodstained, which is a 3/2 vampire that creates a 1/1 white vampire with lifelink, so you get a little bit of a 2-for-1. Parhelion Patrol, which is really good. 4 mana gets you a 2/3 with flying, vigilance, and mentor. So that's pretty strong with some of your little stuff. And then 4 copies Angel of the Dawn. When it enters the battlefield, 5 mana 3/3. All creatures you control get +1/+1 in vigilance. So there are some variations to this deck. Some of them play more like pump spells.
I was gonna say Inspired Charge kind of feels like it might fit into this deck. The 4 mana creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn.
Yeah,
it
and I've
kind of
definitely
feels
seen
like
versions
that
with that.
Yeah. Okay. So that does make sense. What other sort of buffs have you been seeing out of this? Because you mentioned Knight's Pledge, but I'm not over the moon about that.
I've seen Dub. I've seen that trick that's W gives you +2/+2 and you gain a life for each creature you control. Most of the time though, and I'm actually really shocked by this, a lot of times my opponents will pump a creature when I deadweight it, and I'm like, do you know how this works?
Yeah,
they'll do a one-time pump in response, and I'm like, it's not going to die now, but it's going to die in your upkeep, you know?
Yeah, that's I've definitely noticed that there have been times where I've been a little bit confused by things my opponents have done, and I might chalk that up to the fact that because Arena is free to play, there are players who are newer to the game, and
yeah, there's also. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think generally, like, the level of play that I've experienced there has been a bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah. Honorable mentions, Fresh Faced Recruit. That card is also good in this deck. That's the 2/1 that gets first strike. I like that card. I'm trying to think. There was another white card that I'm forgetting right now that I also liked.
I'm kind of shocked that there... I actually checked before we looked. I'm kind of bummed that there's not, like, a common level... O-ring style effect,
like just exile something.
Yeah, I'm even like I don't know how much you remember of Battle for Zendikar Limited, but there was like a very restricted O-ring in that was Isolation Zone, which was 2 white for it was exile a creature or enchantment O-ring.
I think I do remember that.
Like this does feel like pretty reasonable for best of 1, but it would be nice to be able to take care of problematic non-creature permanents. There aren't that many of them in this format, but it would just be nice to have that sort of little bit of extra interaction. Also, there are a decent number of decks that can make use out of a body even if it can't attack or block. Like I've seen a couple of riffs on an Aristocrats list, so I don't know. I'm not huge on Luminous Bonds.
My way of dealing with Luminous Bonds is I just blink of an eye, the creature back to my hand. So yeah, it's not really the best.
Yeah,
but I think out of the white removal, it is the strongest one.
All right, are there any other? Now this deck, not to get too ahead of ourselves. When they bring, I'm sure they're going to bring Pauper back to Arena once Ravnica Allegiance hits. Do you think that there's a version of this deck that kind of goes a little deeper on the Hunted Witness thing and just jams a bunch of afterlife creatures.
I think that's going to really depend on the quality of the common afterlife creatures, but yes, I think that would be a logical place for this deck to go, because a card like Silverbeak Griffin is like okay, but it doesn't really go with the theme of the rest of the cards, and it's a 2/2 for 2, as we discussed, 2 toughness. I mean, that's just going to get 1-for-1 right on out of the game, you know. So yeah, pretty interesting. Whereas a card like Hunted Witness, your opponent has 3 Hunted Witnesses on the field, Mephitic Vapors suddenly doesn't look very good.
Yeah, I've definitely been on the Mephitic Vapors side of that equation, and it rarely feels like you're going to come out ahead of that exchange, especially with Hunted Witness leaving behind a lifelinker.
Have you ever Vapors with no creatures on the battlefield just to try and find some land? I've done that.
I admittedly have. The Surveil is a nice upside to that, and I think the only reason that card is super playable in this format.
Well, yeah, because you can just effectively, I mean, not truly cycle it, but effectively set up your next couple draws. So it's pretty good.
Yeah, like the fail case is not a nausea against a wall of 2/2s.
The next deck is Green-Black Saprolings, and this is the Aristocrat style list you were referring to. And I wasn't really sure how strong this deck was on the outset, but I think that if you're playing, I think I don't think it's as good as Blue-Black. But if you're going to be playing against a lot of mono white or mono red or Boros or aggressive style decks, which are very popular, this deck is also just really good because you have access to the black removal I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, and another thing that might be drawing people towards this deck is they give you a chunk of intro decks over the first like week or so that you're on Arena. So I'm looking at this list. A lot of this is in the green-black starter deck that they give you. So that could definitely be drawing people into this.
Yeah, and for everyone at home, we have 14 Swamps, 6 Forests, Vocal Guard, Guildgate, so 24 lands. 2 copies of Dead Weight, which is amazing in this meta. Basically, I will keep a hand that's like 2 lands, Dead Weight, Dead Weight, Dead Weight, Divination. I'd be like, yeah, this is good.
Oh yeah, that is like I have goosebumps right now at the quality of that hand in this format.
9 times out of 10, it will be awesome, and then you'll occasionally get paired in the mirror and you'll just get spanked because your cards just don't do anything. but 9 times out of 10, like that hand is very worth keeping on the blind, because that's how strong they are. 4 copies of Fungal Infection. Target creature gets -1/-1 till end of turn. You get a 1/1 green sapling token, so you can use this to 2-for-1 your opponent or set up, like, you know, finish them off after you Mephitic Vapors. Really strong. 4 copies Vicious Offering.
Also, I do want to say, like, Fungal Infection, with the amount of ground-based creatures in this format, does an okay impression of Disfigure.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah, it's not amazing, but being able to get rid of a 2 toughness creature in combat out of nowhere and forcing your opponent to react to it in the moment is pretty good.
We've also got 4 copies of Vicious Offering, 1 on a black. Target creature gets -2/- till end of turn. Kicker, sacrifice a creature. If the spell was kicked, that creature gets -5/-5 instead. So with as many Saprolings as you're able to play in this deck, as we'll see in a second, this card is very good. It's a lot like Moment of Craving for the control decks, but you have the added bonus of getting -5/-5. But of course, the trade-off of not getting 2 life, I think, is very relevant.
Yeah, though this does deal with even the biggest of non-hexproof creatures, except for Colossal Dreadmaw and that one like 8/8 dinosaur for 9.
I don't think anyone's playing those.
I've seen Colossal Dreadmaw.
After that, I think that we have one of the main reasons to play Saprolings. So Saprolings actually has like 4 really good cards that this deck is playing 4 of. The first is Saproling Migration. Kicker 4, but otherwise 1 and a green. Create 2 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens. The spell was kicked. Create 4 instead. Obviously doesn't line up very well against Mephitic Vapors, but in a board stall and with some of the other cards we see here, this could very well win you the game.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Following that up, we have 4 copies, of Deathbloom Thallid, functioning kind of on the same axis as the white decks. 3 mana gets you a 3/2, which is not bad. And when it dies, you get a 1/1 green Saproling creature token. So you get a little bit of value.
Yeah, and we'll see that there's other things that you can do with this in addition to that.
A spicy include to this list that I've yet to actually see, but maybe because I'm always killing all their creatures, is Gruesome Fate. 2 and a black, each opponent loses 1 life for each creature you control. So this plus Sapperling Migration, profit.
Yeah, kind of build your own like fireball out of nowhere. I had totally forgotten about this card because we have better options in regular pauper, so it totally makes sense here in my mind.
Following that, we have 2 copies of Mind Rot. I don't know how I feel about Mind Rot because Divination is a card, and this card is good against the control decks. I'm guessing like that's where you want it. But in a world where the control decks are playing Devious Cover Up, Divination, and Opt, I really don't know if this card is very good.
I kind of am okay with Mind Rot in this format because a majority of the games I've seen have been relatively grindy, and being able to Mind Rot your opponent down to 0 cards or even just put them in a bad position. I totally hear you about the counter spells and such, but if your opponent is tapped out, just slamming Mind Rot into them when they're low on cards can help you sort of win that war of attrition. So
yeah, and
I don't hate it.
If you watch my videos, sometimes the control deck will also just 2 for 1 itself just because it knows it can set up better on a later turn. So yeah, Mind Rot in that scenario is very good.
Yeah, definitely.
Following that, we have 4 copies of Yavimaya Shepherd, 3 mana 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get a 1/1 green Sapperling creature token. So this card is actually a lot better than it looks, especially against control decks, because you can't really 1 for 1 it effectively unless you just counter it, because Vapors only gets rid of the token, and then all of your other removal only gets rid of the Shepherd. So it's kind of a tough card to effectively deal with, which is sort of what I was just talking about, where the control deck will sometimes just 2 for 1 itself in order to gain a better board position, especially early on. What do you think?
I like it, and the fact that it is at the end of the day, like, this is on rate. It's 3 mana for 3 power, and the fact that it's split across 2 bodies is actually really good. And all the stuff you mentioned about the fact that it doesn't just die to Mephitic Vapors is really important. Like, you cannot... this card is likely going to 2 for 1 your opponent, and if they're planning on removing it, and if not, it does just get you 2 creatures on the board. It's really helpful for blocking stuff. There's a reasonable amount of ways for stuff to get menace in this format, so I do like the Sap Herd.
I haven't actually played the green-black deck yet, but talking about it is making me really want to play it. We've also got 4 copies Thallid Omnivore. Now, this is the Aristocrat. 4 mana gets you a 3/3 with 1. Sacrifice another creature. Thallid Omnivore gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If a Sapperling was sacrificed this way, you gain 2 life. So already you put yourself over the other aggro decks. Like, this is very much a mid-range deck. This will maybe prevent them from winning the game if you can gain enough life, and it provides a very big beater that's hard to deal with.
Yeah, it also helps you sort of recover if your opponent has resolved a big chunky thing. Like, if your opponent has resolved their Cold Water Snapper, if you can get one of these into play and hold up mana on your opponent's turn, they are going to have to do some digging to make sure that they can actually get through this thing. And the life gain on top of it all just kind of slams this one home for me. Like, the fact that you can get into like a weird situation where you have a big board stall and you block a bunch of stuff and sack bits and pieces of it to gain some life is really useful for this format. Yeah, I'm super into Thallid Omnivore. I loved it in Limited, and I really love it here.
Following that, we have 4 copies of Deadly Visit, which is a removal spell. Black 3 gets to destroy target creature, surveil 2. So, a little bit interested to see 4 copies of this in this green-black list. Most of the lists I see play Eviscerate, which is a 4 mana, only 1 black pip spell, which I think in this deck might be a little bit better. But Surveil is so strong that's the reason originally I just didn't have Eviscerate, which is why I wasn't running them in my deck. But then being able to clear cards off the top of your libraries was powerful enough to warrant the extra mana, in my opinion. What do you think about it here in a mid-range deck, Mike?
I'm like, so removal, unconditional removal in this format is not good, to say the least here. And most of them come in at this 5 mana point. And out of the 5 mana options, I think I like this one the most. However, so the Surveil's nice. How would you feel about instead going with Severed Strands, which is
I have seen a lot of decks play Severed Strands. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to read the card for folks at home. It's 1 and a black sorcery. As an additional cost, sacrifice a creature. You gain life equal to sacrifice creature's toughness. Destroy target creature and opponent controls.
So I think that Severed Strands is better in this deck because you have the Saprolings. My only hesitation with Severed Strand, and also like the mana cost is way less, is being down the body relevant is the main question. Chances are probably not because you have the Saprolings. I think I've seen Severed Strands a lot more on this list than Deadly Visit.
Yeah, Deadly Visit seems a little much. The 5 mana like removal, because just to be clear, so we have 3 of those currently in Standard. There's Deadly Visit, which we covered. There's Contract Killing, which destroys a creature, and then you get 2 treasure tokens. And then there's Lich's Caress, which destroys a creature, you gain 3 life. And out of all of those, I think that Deadly Visit is the best of the 3, but I'm not in love with spending more than 4 mana on minimal upside. Like, you don't really have any graveyard synergy here. Yeah, maybe if this was running some sort of like graveyard recursion, I'd feel better about Deadly Visit, but as it stands, I'm not super high on it.
And then the final one is 2 copies of Overgrown Armosaur. Green 3 gets you a 4/4 with Enrage. Whenever it's dealt damage, you get a 1/1 green sapling creature token. And the only reason I can think to play this is that you just, I don't know. The ability is on theme. I don't think this card is very good.
Oh, really? I was going to say that I actually kind of like this.
It's actually really good against Cosmotronic Wave.
It's good against Cosmotronic Wave in that it helps you rebuild your board. But also just generally, it's a 4/4 that's a little bit overcosted and can make your opponent have second thoughts about like the chump attack, because you can always just be like, all right, I'll just eat your 1/1, get a 1/1.
That's true.
I think it just lends enough interesting play that I'm a fan of it, and it does represent like a 4/4 in this format is pretty big. So like that can just be a win con.
I guess where I'm coming from is, as the blue-black deck, I'm just going to Deadly Visit it. But that, like you said at the top of the show, the decks that we have chosen to play with have definitely colored our opinion, our view of the format.
Definitely. All right, yeah, I'm a big fan of this list, mainly just because I liked drafting this kind of deck in Dominaria Limited. Like, sure, you miss out on Slimefoot and a lot of the really, really good payoffs, but this is a pretty solid deck. It's got good options for removal, and it can just spam the board, which is the thing that the control decks want to see the least. Now, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that might not be in this list that could be good, and I'm really, really coming up with a blank, because I don't think we have any like mass pump spells in green or black right now in Standard, do we, at Common? I really don't think we do. I'm sure if we do, someone in the comments will let me know.
Yeah, let us know.
All right,
or don't. We're the experts.
But yeah, this is a super cool deck, and yeah, I'm glad to see this like weird pseudo tribal thing showing up here. All right, so we've covered 2 lists. We have 2 more. We're gonna take a little bit of a tempo break. I know we didn't do this last episode, but we did not forget about it. We've got the combat step, our thing where one of us asks the other one to pick between 2 things. We give a brief explanation, we move on. It's a nice little sort of tempo change here. Yeah. Adrian, what are you asking me to pick between right now?
I want you to choose between 2 mechanics, not from how good they are in the game, but from which ability you personally would prefer to have.
All right.
They are Regenerate and Indestructible.
Okay. So the part of me that likes a very simple, intuitive game design really likes Indestructible, because...
But you're a huge troll, so...
well, no. I want to walk through this one with you.
Uh-huh.
Regenerate is a weird ability. The fact that I can activate a regeneration ability more than once, the fact that the creature never leaves the battlefield, which I have seen countless people do.
You will never leave the battlefield.
Yeah. um, and then the fact that it brings it back tapped and removes it from combat. There's just all these like weird corner case things attached to regenerate. One of the things I did really like was the templating on Dominaria limited unplayable Drudge Skeleton, which had an ability for, I think it was 2 or 3, and you tap it and it gains indestructible. To clarify, tapping is part of the effect, not the cost.
And that's actually Drudge Sentinel, which is a riff on Drudge Skeletons.
There we go. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I saw that in the event, so that's
okay.
Funny.
Okay,
Bad.
You've had firsthand experience with a bad card.
Well, it doesn't stop fungal infections. So.
Yeah, it does not. So I think at the end of the day, I think indestructible is just a cleaner keyword and the one that I'd want to see more. I don't think it's always necessarily better, but
I meant which one would you personally rather have?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's why I called you a huge troll, because that's who typically gets regenerate.
In that, if it's just which I'd rather have, indestructible. Like I'd rather not be able to get hurt rather than like there's at least one scene in the X-Men where Wolverine just has all of the flesh flayed off of him, and you still feel that. He doesn't die, but like that's not gonna be fun.
All right.
What
do you have?
All right. So I have a question for you. One of these things gets taken off of the pauper ban list. Which one and why? Peregrine Drake or Cloud of Fairies?
My God. Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez. Oh, man. I'm going to go with Drake. And the reason I'm going with Drake is because it only makes one deck the best deck, as opposed to Cloud of Fairies, which would make multiple decks the best deck.
So what you're saying is, because of an interest in lack of diversity, we have chosen to unban Peregrine Drake?
I just think that it'll be easier for the rest of the format to fight it if everyone's gunning for it, as opposed to Familiar Combo, which I really, really hated playing against, and Delver.
I was gonna say, as much as people hated familiars back in the day, I always was way more demoralized by Delver into Cloud of Fairies past turn. I always thought that was a way worse thing to see on the other side of the board, personally.
That's kind of why that's the reason I picked Drake. I don't know. I hated familiars. I don't know. I guess in the terms of format health, though, Cloud would be better because, like you said, it powers up more decks. It would give Delver a tool to maybe fight against other Cloud of Fairy decks.
Okay.
Exactly what we need is Cloud of Fairies, Gush, and Foil all available at the same time.
Oh, yeah. That would be that'd be something. All right. Let's
speaking of blue-black.
Yeah, speaking of blue-black decks, are we covering your list first or the other version?
Let's cover mine first, just because let's cover the other one. Well, hold on. Which one's first here? Mine is first. Let's cover mine first. Sorry, it was a little back and forth there. So I riffed off of Eric Klug. It is Klug, right? Not Klug.
I believe it is Klug.
I riffed off of Eric Klug's list, and I, of course, had to make some swaps because I didn't actually own all the cards, nor could I craft them all, so that was kind of fun. The most noticeable disinclusion in this format that I've seen is really none of the control decks are playing Cancel. And the more I play, the more I realize it's because these blue-black decks don't really hit their sweet spot until like 10 mana.
Yeah.
and Cancel just costs too much.
It really does. You really want to be on like 2 mana counters or counters with serious upside.
Because if you want to realistically double spell with this deck in the late game, you need 10 mana because all your creatures cost 5, and then most of your like if, let's just say, at the very least you want to salvage your back a divination and play them both in the same turn, you need 8. Like this deck just wants all of its lands. So we have 11 islands, 4 Deemer Guildgates, 9 swamps, 3 copies of Opt. I really don't know why there's not 4, but that's a Klug copy. 4 copies of Deadweight, 2 copies Fungal Infection, 3 copies Blink of an Eye. So this card has so much utility. Disperse is also in this format, but being able to draw a card off of kicked Blink of an Eye is so good. Also, since the token decks have or excuse me, since there are so many decks that play tokens that you, like we talked about earlier, you can't really effectively 2-for-1. Being able to just cash in a blink of an eye to get rid of the token and draw a card helps mitigate that, and it can also be used defensively with your own creatures. So,
I've got to say, I've used Blink of an Eye an astounding amount of times on my own stuff. I was really shocked at how frequently I did that.
It's very flexible, and it's very, very, I think it's very strong. And it pairs very nicely with our next spell, which is Essence Scatter. 1 in the blue, counter target creature spell. Bye-bye, Coldwater Snapper.
I was gonna say, you're kind of like slowly here building this like dirtily 6 mana bounce and counter kind of affair. But yeah, you do need a way to deal with Coldwater Snapper, and none of our removal is getting there.
We also have 1 copy Negate, useful. I'm playing 1 copy Macabre Waltz. This should really be a soul salvage, which I didn't know was a card and I didn't have, so I'm playing Macabre Waltz. Both of them let you get back up to 2 target creature cards out of your graveyard. Although I think Soul Salvage, you actually have to get 2 back, right?
No. Soul Salvage is up to 2.
But Macabre Waltz costs 1 less, but makes you discard a card. So do you think the extra mana is relevant? Do you think the extra card is relevant? Really up to you, I think.
I'm much more in favor of Soul Salvage, just because you could be in a situation where, because you talked about earlier the Blink of an Eye Salvager of Secrets loop. You can also do a Soul Salvage Salvager of Secrets thing. So
yeah, and that has prompted some concessions from my opponents.
Oh yeah, sure. Like, people see that and they're just like, no, this is nonsense, I'm leaving. But I like the fact that if you're just flooding out, you can kind of have this indeterminate amount of blockers and keep looping it. Whereas with Macabre Waltz, you're gonna have to pitch the lands. I think the big thing for me is you're not casting either of these spells before you're at 5 mana, at which point I'm cool paying an extra 1 mana to get things back, personally.
For sure. Yeah, if the event wasn't only another 3 days, I would probably just craft it and swap it out, but I've learned that common wild cards are at a huge premium, so I probably will not.
Fair enough.
Following that, 4 copies of Moment of Craving, just so good against the aggro decks. Like, kill your thing, gain back the life I lost, like just so powerful. 4 copies Divination, again, very powerful, maybe one of the best 3 mana plays around. Would you agree?
I would agree, and there is the contention between this and Secrets of the Golden City.
Oh yeah, tell me about what that one is again.
Secrets of the Golden City is 1 blue instead of the 2 and a blue, but it draws 2 cards. But it also has Ascend, so if you have 10 or more permanents in play when you cast it, or if you've ascended in the past, you get the City's Blessing, and then you draw 3 cards instead of 2 cards.
I think that not being double blue is relevant.
I was going to say the fact that I have not ever wanted more than 4 dual lands in this, and it's weird because the dual lands let you hit more restrictive mana costs, but most of your restrictive mana costs at this moment are in the higher CMC slots, so you're more likely to just draw into those naturally anyway. So having this sort of 3 mana draw spell that you probably are totally fine casting turn 3, potentially crimping you because of your mana, I'm not a big fan of, but I do see the argument. Like, pay 3, draw 3 is really good.
Yeah, I totally agree. In the late game, it's very powerful, and the early game Divination is probably better.
I think there's probably an argument to be made for some sort of split, just so that you have access to them late game if you draw into them, but you're not always going to brick on it if you see it in the early game. Just a thought.
We've also got 2 copies Mephitic Vapors, the sweeper we've talked about. 1 copy Devious Cover-Up. Most are playing 2, but I only had 1. Honestly, 1 is fine. Devious Cover-Up, for those who don't know, is 2 and blue, so 4 mana for a counter target spell. The spell is countered, you exile it, which is very relevant. And then you shuffle 4 target cards from your graveyard into your library. Again, very relevant. Have you ever Devious Covered Up 3 Divinations and a Salvager of Secrets, Mike? Because I have.
Whew. Yeah. Also the fact that this lets you rebuy your deadweights is sometimes just silly. Just like being like, all right, cool. I've got like 3 more draws that are potentially just killing your stuff because I haven't seen anything with more than 2 toughness out of you.
And then in the late
Whew.
and then in the late game, you can just buy it back again with Salvager. So it's very good. It's a very, very strong card. 2 is probably where you want to be, honestly, because you can then devious cover up your devious cover ups. But being able to get back just the one with Salvager has been powerful enough for me.
Honestly, I have never gotten to the point in a game where it was late enough that I needed to start looping devious cover ups with one another, and my opponent was still actually playing things. I think that the 2 is, nice insurance, but you're not always going to need to start that loop up, right?
Right. Following that, we have 1 copy Artful Takedown, which I am playing because I didn't have a second devious cover up. 2 a blue and a black gets you an instant. Choose one or both. Tap target creature. Target creature gets -2, -4 until end of turn. So this is strong against a lot of decks. Tap your bigger thing, kill your smaller thing.
So I'm kind of curious about this. I haven't seen a lot of people in the mirror running this. I think that this is actually really good.
It's really good versus Watcher in the Mist, specifically.
It's really good versus Watcher in the Mist. It's nice that it tempos your opponent out of an attacker, and the fact that it kills pretty much anything with the other half of it is just really nice. I'm probably going to grab some just for the next time Arena shows up, because I think that card is really, really good.
Yeah. Following it up, I think I only have 2 copies of Salvager of Secrets, but I think that this is such an integral part of the deck. Like, the turn that you start playing Salvager is usually a turn where you start winning the game. You stop stalling and you start winning. So they are really key to turning the game around into your favor, because rebuying almost any of these spells is relevant at almost any point in the game. Divination is great, sure, but like, I've gotten back Fungal Infection and killed another 2 of my opponent's creatures. I've gotten back a Mephitic Vapors and done another board wipe. I've gotten back another Essence Scatter to deal with the card I know is in my opponent's hand. Like, the card is just so flexible and so versatile, and I say it in my video, if you've played with Archaeomancer or Mnemonic Wall, I don't need to explain to you why this card is good.
Yeah, I think that this is legitimately one of the best parts of this deck. And as you said, like, you're almost never just casting this into something lackluster. It's usually like, all right, I'm in top deck mode. I don't want to be here anymore. Oh, cool, I got a Salvager of Secrets. Rebuy my Divination. Cool, I drew into more gas. Let's go. Or, yeah, as you mentioned, like, getting back removal, getting back counter spells. And I've also definitely noticed, and again, I'm not sure if this is an Arena thing, people get really cautious when they can see that you have a counter spell in hand. And I feel like there are definitely games that I've won off the back of just like them knowing I have a counterspell in hand and not casting something that they probably should have. But I'm a huge fan of Salvager Secrets. I actually got a bunch of them because I was doing that play anything draft and just kept taking this. So I'm really happy with this.
I also have 3 copies Watcher in the Mist. Watcher in the Mist is a 3/4 flyer for 5 when it enters the battlefield. Surveil 2. Just a great way to end the game. 4 toughness isn't so safe, like we mentioned, because of cards like that Sacrifice one we talked about. There's also the blue-black one we just talked about, Artful Takedown. There's even Sheevan Fire. But losing your Watcher in the Mist is actually not that big of a deal because it's so easy to get it back.
And I've also seen a decent amount of my opponents try to 2-for-1 themselves to get it, and the moment they start going for that second one, like if you've got the blink of an eye and the mana for it, it's just like, oh, gonna get you right here.
Yeah, that's when my opponent 2-for-1's a Watcher in the Mist, that's when I throw out a nice. I only throw out ironic nices. I never throw out good nices. They're always not good.
Oh, I said the nice when someone does something cool.
No, I say nice whenever they do something stupid. Clearly, you need to play more Hearthstone.
I was gonna say, am I like inadvertently BMing my opponents because I'm trying to be like super nice?
In my opinion, emote spam certainly isn't good manners. Your opponent can mute you. The only true BM that I think carries over from Hearthstone here is roping people. Roping is when you just let your timer run out to the last second you do something so it doesn't count against you, and like that is serious BMing.
Also the preemptive good game.
Oh, dude, I had someone good gaming like that the other night, and then I beat them at 1 life. So satisfying.
Oh,
they were at they were at 30 and I was at 1, and I was playing this deck, and I didn't even have that much. I just drew well. My stuff lined up against their stuff. I let them resolve a Wojek bodyguard that didn't do anything for 15 turns. Like, it was a great time.
I can appreciate that. And then last thing in the deck.
2 copies Deadly Visit, the black removal spell we were talking about earlier. And here I think it's fine because we want so much mana and the Surveil mechanic is so powerful. And also this deck just really wants a couple pieces of unconditional removal.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a must for the black decks in this format. I just don't think you can get around it. Now, I've been playing 2 Eviscerate in place of this.
I did not have Eviscerates, which is why I started playing Deadly Visit, but I think the Surveil is powerful enough in this deck that you want it just because your land count is so high.
I think I want kind of a split just because I like Eviscerate being able to answer. I've run into a couple of like red-green rampy style decks that were interesting, and they definitely, because they are ramping, get to bigger stuff quicker. And I need an answer like this for something like why can't I come up with the name of it? The 6/6 Trampler. Colossal Dreadmaw. There we go.
Yeah. Sorry.
But yeah, I like the fact that it's on 4 mana personally, but I do think some sort of split is the correct call.
And I don't want to toot my own horn here too much, but I have an 85% win rate with this deck. Like, I have just been maybe that's why I've enjoyed the event so much. I have been almost unstoppable with it. I think it is the best deck, so I expect it to get, that's kind of a problem in of itself, so I'm glad the event's not too long. But the deck is really, really, really strong, and I haven't seen a record higher than that yet.
Yeah, I think it is a lot stronger than a lot of the other alternatives available. Do we want to kind of get into some of the you have another whole list here, but do you kind of just want to hit maybe the highlights of other options that can be played in this style of blue-black control deck?
Yeah, I think we're running a little bit short on time. Syncopate is a big card. 1X or blue X, counter it, and then it gets exiled. Maybe a little bit better than Negate and Essence Scatter in a way. Not as good in the late game, but just as good on turn 2. Very good in the mirror where you can exile something and then it can no longer be deviously covered up, whatever you want to say. Whisper Agent is another card I've seen played. I don't think it's very good. Whisper Agent's the flash Dimir creature. So 1 hybrid blue-black, enters the battlefield, Surveil 1. I just think a 3/2 is such a huge liability, and the Surveil isn't strong enough to warrant spending a card to do it, especially if your opponent just immediately answers this. And then Cloud Reader Sphinx, which is a 3/4 scry 2.
So do you think that Cloud Reader Sphinx isn't as good just because you're missing out on the graveyard synergies? Because that was kind of my read on it. Like,
yeah, I think that the surveilling is stronger.
Like, you have Devious Cover-Up, you have Salvager of Secrets. I just feel like there's a lot of reasons you want to be surveilling over scrying.
Yeah, I haven't really been able to put it into words. My gut take is that the surveil is stronger.
Yeah, I think my gut take on surveil as a mechanic is a lot of the time it is stronger if you can do anything with your graveyard.
Surveilling is also, and maybe this is the graveyard synergy you mentioned. Of course, it's good if you put something in your graveyard. This list that we're looking at too notably does not run Salvager of Secrets. Being able to salvage it back later is of course strong, but it makes your devious cover-ups better if your lands are just in your graveyard and not in your deck when you shuffle stuff back into it.
That is true, yeah. Like, it does up your chances of being able to draw into actual gas, which is the main thing you want to be doing after a devious cover-up.
Right. So I think in that regard, the surveil is much better.
All right. We're definitely going to be a little bit on the long side, but Ravnica Allegiance spoilers start actually probably the day that this goes up to the general public. But what sort of things do you think are going to be in the future for this? Obviously, we can't predict cards that we haven't seen yet, but from what we know of the 5 guilds, which to recap are Azorius, Gruul, Orzhov, Simic, and Rakdos.
I am expecting mono red to get better.
You're expecting some type of like aggressive, because actually we have a model for this, because in guilds, we got 3 gold cards and 1 hybrid card for each color pair. So maybe some sort of aggressive hybrid blue, black-red card.
Yeah, well, the reason I say that is because I'm looking at cards like Fresh-Faced Recruit. Something like that in Rakdos might be stronger. I think that their mechanic is going to be strong at common if it's on effectively costed creatures, of course. And then same with Gruul. I'm mostly going off of their mechanics. I just think Riot and Spectacle are going to be strong at the common level in Standard specifically. Not necessarily for Pauper as a whole, but Spectacle, like it just rewards your opponent for losing life. And then Riot, if it goes off of the rare we saw, is going to be modal. So I just think that both of those are going to be strong.
Yeah, I think Riot is always just the option between a counter and haste. And I think the fact that a lot of the controlling decks operate most of the time at sorcery speed in a lot of cases is going to force them to do something differently, and gives red and green and potentially red-green decks something really powerful. Because one of the things that I have not seen yet that I think is absolutely silly is the fact that in a green deck, you could have a curve out that is turn 1, Forest, Llanowar Elves. Turn 2, land, Grow from the Ashes. Turn 3, land, kick to Grow from the Ashes. And you're at 6 mana going into turn 5. So I'm curious if there's like some sort of red-green big monsters style deck, or even a red-green just sort of beatdown deck. I'm not sure if Azorius is the tricky one, right? Because its keyword is so generic that we have no idea what sort of things are going to see it common outside of the one that we've had previewed.
Right. I honestly don't mind Sphinx's Insight. I don't think it's like the end all be all, but I think it is strong enough that it will see play in Standard Pauper. And actually, Mike, this is actually a pretty exciting opportunity for us as your Pauper commentators, because now when we do a set review with Arena and all, we're probably going to start evaluating cards based on how good they are in Standard Pauper.
Yeah, I think definitely we're still going to have a major focus on traditional Pauper, but the fact that we can now kind of go through these set reviews and actually have these cards in a context where they're a little bit more important is going to be interesting. For what it's worth, I do think that Orzhov is going to have a really neat tokens deck after the set releases, because we've seen one common, the white black for a 1/1 with, I want to say it has some keyword on it. I'm gonna have to look it up. It's the weird grandma nun. Oligarch, I believe, is in the Imperious Oligarch. Yeah, black white for a 2/1 with vigilance, Afterlife 1. So you get a 1/1 flyer.
Oh yeah, I forgot that was a common.
Yeah, that's a common. Like I could very easily see there being some sort of white black, like, because you've got Hunted Witness as well. You've got the 3 mana spell that makes a pair of 1/1 lifelinkers. Like,
oh yeah, I forgot about that card too. Yeah, there's gonna be a sweet black white tokens deck for sure.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the future of this, and I definitely urge people to go check it out, because Arena is free to play. I would suggest, if you want to get into it with any level of seriousness, even like casually, spend the $5 on that starter bundle. But I've been having a blast. I would not have expected to enjoy Standard Pauper. I tweeted about this. Like, we made fun of it on the show years ago, and now I'm kind of into it. And I wonder how much of that is the fact that guilds gave us a bunch of really interesting and slightly higher powered than a lot of past standard sets type of effects that weren't quite good enough for actual traditional Pauper, but definitely give this format a little bit of a more detailed texture to it. But yeah, do you have any other thoughts on Standard Pauper, the stuff that's happening in the greater world of Magic?
I hope they reprint Rakdos Shred Freak.
Ooh, that'd be a spicy one. The 2 mana 2/2 haster.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd
2/1.
be.
He's a 2/1.
He's a 2/1?
Yeah.
Huh. Still, that's a solid card for this type of format. All right, cool. We will have a regular show next week, but the week after that, on Monday, we will be recording our set review. Y'all will get that Wednesday. I'm very excited for it. Full spoiler drops next week on Friday, so definitely get at us on social media if you're interested in our takes on stuff as it gets spoiled.
At us.
At us, yes. As the kids say. at me on Twitter. All right, Adrian, you want to take us out of the show?
Yep. Thanks for joining us today. This podcast is brought to us by one of our patrons, including Esculapius. I apologize if I said that wrong. Please consider supporting us. Like them if you like the show. Check below this video, the description of this podcast for details on where to find us. We'd like to remind you, if you listen to this on a platform with reviews, we do appreciate them because they boost our visibility. If you've got a deck list, an idea for a topic, feel free to contact us either via our website or you can email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. Special thanks to my LGS Pat's Games, Mike's LGS JP Comics, and of course L. Our theme song is brought to you by him. You can find that and other great tracks over at soundcloud.net/ELLELLELLELL. Until next week, this is Adrian and Mike signing off for Color Commentary.